And we will call this Jefferson County Board of Health meeting to order. It is 3 o'clock. The first thing that we'll do is go into executive session, but we are going to take a roll call, and this is July 18th. We are going to take a roll call. Lindsay?
Rochelle Woods.
Present.
Harriet Hall.
Present.
Lane Drager.
Present.
Sherry Jean.
Present.
And for the record, Hilda Gerke is absent and a quorum has been established.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the very first thing that we'll need to do is to go into an executive session, and I'm going to ask Carrie if you will read the statutes for us to go into that.
I'm happy to do so. May I please have a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 24-6-424B for legal advice concerning variance requests and legal advice concerning open meetings.
I will so move.
Moved by Harriet Hall,
I'll second that.
and there is a second by Rochelle Woods. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. So we will now go into executive session, and we have planned that for about an hour. Is that correct, Lindsay?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, and then we'll have our regular business meeting that starts at 4. So everyone can sit tight. Thank you. And thank you for all of your patience as we were in executive session. We are now back in the regular general business portion of the Jefferson County Public Health meeting for the board. And we did take roll call, and everyone is here. So we will proceed. We were unable to, sometimes this happened, and thank goodness it's really rare. We were unable to get anyone for the language justice meeting for today, but we always try to do that. And normally we are very successful, but today we were not able to do so. So we'll look forward to them being back again at the next one. The first thing that we'll go to is the consent agenda. And that is the acceptance of the agenda, approval of June Board of Health meeting minutes, approval of the warrants, and approval of the contracts. Is there anything on there that any of the board members would like to discuss and have pulled off? Or may we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as it is written?
I don't want to pull it off, but maybe during staff director comments, there's a new contract on syphilis that's a fairly high dollar amount. So I'd be interested to hear about the staffing and the work that's going to go into that, but I don't have any problem.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that in on the staff. That would be great.
I agree with that, Sherry. I'd like to have some additional information and detail on that as well. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. As far as public comment goes, we do take public comment. We love to hear from our public.
So we need to approve the
Oh, yeah, we didn't approve it.
I'd
You
be
just
happy to
said-
make that motion.
That's right. And Lane?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted. Public comment there, we do not have anyone signed up for general public comment. If you're here to speak on the variance, you will be called on once we go into that issue. So when you have public comment, we do ask that people sign up prior to the meeting so that we know how to kind of plan the time and the agenda for the meeting. We do like hearing from our public, and you can always do that for signing up to speak publicly or through emails. And Lindsay makes sure that we get all of those. We will move right into the variance cases. I want to make sure that we address anyone that has wanted to sign up and that they've gotten signed up to speak on any of the variance cases. We do have written comments that we will make sure are documented per this meeting. We have written comments from Jennifer Walter, John German, although he may also have signed up to speak, Trish Landy, Shannon and John Duran, Joseph Kursikowski, Joseph, forgive me, Ryan Kessler, Rebecca and James Ferguson, and Chris Green. They have all submitted written comments, and we will make sure that those are documented. Is there anyone that would like to speak on the variance cases? Okay. Are you seeing any hands, Lindsay? I'm not.
No.
Okay. Well, let's, Mary Sloan, why don't you take us right into your presentation? We've allowed about 30 minutes for that, or as long as you need, so go right ahead. We have two before us.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, we are going to start today with Snyder Avenue. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Sloan. I work within the Environmental Health Division for Jefferson County Public Health. I'm the case manager for the on-site wastewater variances. The first case that we will discuss today is 25657 Snyder Avenue. So just a general overview of a very, part of our regulations, section 5.1 that discusses variance requests. Variance requests are only allowed for exceptions to table 4.1, which is the acreage and plat date requirement. And then also variance requests may be made for on-site well and on-site soil treatment area setback distances of less than 200 feet without implementing higher level treatment. These variances must not be injurious to public health and shall prevent a substantial hardship to the applicant. So for our first case, our applicant is Abel. He has a 0.64 acre lot that is located in Aspen Park Unit 3. This unit of Aspen Park was platted in 1955. He purchased the property in 2022. The on-site wastewater system is being designed by All Service Septic, which is owned by Tim Petz, and the proposed development would be well and septic. With a 3-bedroom dwelling. The system type with the on-site wastewater system would be the highest level of treatment level 3N, and the zoning type of the property is a residential 1 R1. So he is seeking a variance from table 4.1 where 1 acre is required, and he only has 64% of the required lot size. So just a little bit of chronology with regulations, zoning, wastewater standards, et cetera. So Aspen Park, as I spoke before, was platted September 20th, 1955 for Unit 3. And then in November 13th, 1955, residential zoning became established. And that falls under 8.7 acres for a single family dwelling to meet that zoning requirement. And then in June 3rd, 1966, Jefferson County Board of Health adopted the Table 4.1 requirement, which is based off the plat date and the acreage for well and septic and all public water and septic systems. To kind of give you an idea of where this property is located, it's right off 285. It's kind of across the street from the King Soopers and Conifer. And just a reminder, it is part of Aspen Park, Unit 3. I wanted to give a general overview of the surrounding development. So as you'll notice, a lot of these lots, maybe less than, but most of them are a little bit over an acre or close to an acre. A lot of them were developed in the mid-50s and 70s, and most of them are a treatment level 1 system when it comes to their on-site wastewater system. Now, as a reminder, with the property in question, they would be installing a treatment level 3N system, which is the highest level of treatment based on today's technology. A couple of these, I just have repair records. I don't have the initial installation records. But as you can see, one of the neighboring lots also sought a variance for the acreage requirement based on, the time they installed the system and the time that they built the house. So that was after the implementation of the Table 4.1 in 1966. And I don't know what you guys exactly see, but my sidebar is over here, so I'm going to shift it. Same with these. So you've got a 4.23 acre lot, treatment level 1 system, all developed in the 70s. And then we have another vacant lot right over here. And I can revisit this if you guys have any specific questions regarding the neighboring lots. All right, so this is the site plan provided by Tim Petz of All Service Engineering of the development of the property. So as you see here, here's going to be the location of the STA. This is Snyder Avenue. Over here is Arnold Avenue. So to your left. So, your north facing up here. There are a couple of neighboring wells located on this site plan. They do meet the setbacks. And they are, like I mentioned before, they are planning to install a higher level treatment unit that would be treatment level 3N. Now, Jefferson County Public Health also did some research on the property prior to presenting this case. Myself and Roy Laws visited the site and measured some of the setbacks that are required per the regulations. For instance, the property line setback, which is required to be 10 feet, that was verified that it would meet. And then, the southeast corner of the soil treatment area is 120 feet from the Snyder Avenue road itself. So it would meet setbacks to the 2 neighboring wells to the south. So we did verify based on, our knowledge of all the surrounding wells that they would meet at least that 100-foot setback, which is required with a treatment level 3N system. Just a couple pictures to kind of give you a lay of the land. It's a generally 5 to 10% sloped area, heavily moderately treed. Right here where you see these mounds of dirt would be the approximate location of the STA. Just another viewpoint. And so that was that southeast corner that you saw in the site plan. That would be that 10-foot setback. I know it doesn't appear as though in this picture, but right here, if you can see my mouse, is where the staking is, and it's about 10 feet to that fence line. Another viewpoint. So this would be to your west. And then if you see the county vehicle up here, this is Snyder Avenue. So that would be to your south. So this is the other end of the soil treatment area. I wanted to, there was a lot of comments about the high groundwater in the area, and we acknowledge that, and so did the engineer. So I wanted to address this. So if the variance is approved, that this is going to be addressed prior to any installation, because what we call this is a limiting layer. There was a couple comments that if there may be a potential wetland in the area, and there will be thorough investigation prior to any installation of any components that this is not a declared wetland area. At this time, it has not been identified. But considering we do have a limiting layer, the engineer has designed what we call a mound system, which is not typical. It's, the entire treatment of the effluent is going to be above existing grade. Per the regulations, with a treatment level 3N system, you must have 2 feet of separation. So if you were to look at this bolded arrow right here, that would be your, let's call that where the groundwater is in our situation. So what it is saying is there must be 2 feet of sand filter to create that separation from your distribution cell, which would be your laterals where the effluent is delivered. And in a nutshell, that is for Snyder Avenue.
Board members, do you have questions for Mary?
I do.
Lane?
Thanks, Mary.
Yes.
Can you share the maintenance requirements for the proposed system and what level of contract the owners would need to enter into?
Yes, so with any higher level treatment system, you have to have an ongoing maintenance contract with a approved provider who's licensed with a state program. And they will come through and monitor, it's at least twice a year. They come through to check the system to make sure it's operating correctly. They'll pump the tank if necessary, clean all filters, and then do any repairs if it's not operating to specs.
Are you aware of any groundwater monitoring in the neighborhood at this point? Anyone?
No, I am not, but I have been working closely with our environmental engineer, Roy Laws, who is very knowledgeable on the local area. So prior, if this is approved, or even if it's not, honestly, we're going to start to kind of talk to some of the neighbors and try to gather more information because of the high groundwater. And then we have started a well testing program in the last few years. So we were going to offer that to some of the neighboring lots to see if, the current septic systems are functioning properly and if there is any water quality issues in the area.
Are there any current mounted systems?
Not to my knowledge. They're mostly just, that treatment level 1, kind of 2 or 3 feet excavation depth, and just with some laterals and kind of rock and gravel beds. There's actually very few out there that have a sand filter currently.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the board members? And I do see that Shannon and John Duran have raised their hand, and Susan Raymond. If you will just sit tight for 2 minutes, we'll have the staff finish their presentation. And then I also want to acknowledge to Shannon and John Duran that we did receive your written comments. Were you also wanting to then verbally testify? You can just put that in the chat. Okay, other board members, further staff presentation? I am not seeing any. Why don't we go ahead and let Shannon or John, which one of you wanted to testify, or both? And you'll need to, yeah, she's unmuting you so you can speak.
Hi, this is Shannon Duran.
Okay, so Shannon, I will need to swear you in
Okay,
to speak on this issue. Shannon, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in this on this variance issue?
I do.
And will you give us your full name and address, please, for the records?
Shannon Elizabeth Duran, and I live at 25875 Noah Avenue. Noah is the street below Snyder.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. And we do try to keep the comments to about 3 minutes if you can. That would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. I just had 2 questions. One, on the plans that you showed us, Mary, it's indicating a 5-bedroom home, not a 3-bedroom home.
So on the slide too, it was revised to be a 3-bedroom.
Okay, I
But
just wanted
on
to verify
site
that.
plan that I was provided, it still said 5-bedroom, but the final proposal is 3-bedroom.
Okay, and then I am curious as to why there were no measurements from the house directly behind the proposed site.
So on the engineer's site plan that was initially shown, are you speaking of this neighbor to the north? Or
I
this
am
neighbor right here?
This neighbor, yeah, correct.
Okay. Yes, I don't think we did measure to that, but if the variance is approved prior to any kind of permitting, we have to make sure that all those setbacks are met. If those setbacks are not met, then we can't issue a permit. So it must be 100 feet to all neighboring wells.
But you guys didn't measure that neighbor.
No, not yet.
Gotcha. Those are my two questions.
I'd like to ask.
Oh, John would like to ask a question.
Hi,
Yes,
guys. Thanks for
John.
letting me speak. I'm ready to swear in.
Okey dokey. John, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in this variance issue?
I do.
And will you state your full name and your address, please, just for the record?
Sure. It's Jonathan Lee Duran, 25875 Noah Avenue.
Thank you.
Sure. So, the question that Shannon asked about measuring to the closest person's house there, I'll just say as a statement that I think that it might be a little irresponsible to not take that into consideration. It is the closest, and it is a family member of mine, so I'm concerned about that. There is the ditch running right there, I think is the picture you showed, Mary. So that does reach all the way down to the pond down there, which is a part of Turkey Creek. So there's that. The other part of it is that if you guys go ahead and approve this variance, and the project goes on, seeing how it's sort of the beginning to something new in the area using this level 3 septic system, and will Jefferson County be taking any? Will Jefferson County have any liabilities in permitting this if it is incorrect to the community's water source?
I'm not sure that that's something that could be answered at this meeting, but the one thing I will reiterate is that it has a long way to go as we work through this process. So I appreciate you bringing those comments forward, and they have been noted, and they've been noted also by the department. So I appreciate
Okay.
that very much.
Sure. And then my last question is, will the maintenance of this septic system be overseen by Jefferson County? Or is it just something that somebody keeps on file in case they're audited?
I am going to let the department answer. It is my understanding, and is limited compared to what Mary can tell you, is that this is something that is continually monitored, and there is processes in place to always do that. They don't just approve something and then say, well, we hope it forever works. So I will let Mary, chime in for 2 seconds and make sure that I didn't misspeak.
No, you
Okay.
did not, Sherry. So we do have an ongoing maintenance contract that goes into our database. And so from the minute that system is started, like startup, we call it a startup letter, we enter that contract information into our database, and we have a program manager for that to make sure that those are being submitted per the requirements. And if they're not, then they go into a notice of violation. And then, we proceed to a hearing if it gets to that. But typically we visit the site, contact the homeowner, say you have this much time to get into compliance, and then we move from there. So it's definitely not something that has gone unforeseen.
Okay. And have you noticed since our new I don't know, I'll just call it our newest problem of being understaffed and whatnot, have you noticed that that this type of monitoring has been slowed down or not been able to keep up with since Jeffco's been understaffed?
No, I
Another,
would say absolutely not. This is a top priority in our department. So that is not something that we oversee, that we are understaffed with.
okay. And then at this point in time, held to a timeline on, I mean, so this is the beginning of the variance. Within the next steps, when is the community no longer a part of the process? Where it just becomes the landowner and Jeffco?
Personally, I think that the community is always in the process. You're always welcome to make phone calls in, send emails in, and follow the process. I know just from, watching the past experiences and stuff, that the staff is always very willing to be available and to work with all of the homeowners. That's something that's very important to us.
Okay, but just to clarify, a building permit, it basically stops the variance process and is accepted. That's, I mean, we can complain all we want, but that's basically, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of the timeline of this process, what we can be looking out for next in the future to stay a part of it and to try to get the community more involved, because this affects our community extremely, seeing how there's a lot of houses built on grandfathered in on their small properties from the past. And I just hate to see this become a practice at Jeffco. I am interested.
So I can speak to that. So from here, the first step to any development is proof of water and sewer, and whether that be public, well and septic, whatever that may be. No applicant is able to get a building permit until they have proof of water and sewer. So if they were to get this variance, then they would have to move to the building permit process. And the building department has a completely separate set of regulations that they would have to meet in order to develop. So like Sherry said, you are involved in every step of the process. Every department within Jefferson County allows any contact to express concern. And we always do our site visits and do thorough investigations to ensure that we are protecting the public and public health. So.
And I appreciate that, Mary. Thank you for the answer. And John, I need to move to the next witness, but what I want to tell you is it's very important to us that everyone is always heard. And so, the minute you sign off, you're going to come up with another question. Well, if you're anything like me. So please make all of your notes and get them to the department so that we can keep you in the loop and know that we are listening to the communities. We do have another person signed up, so we're going to ask Susan Raymond. Did you still want to speak? You have been unmuted. Okay, so let's get you sworn in, Susan.
Alrighty.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in this case before us with the variance?
Yes.
Okay, and would you give us your full name and your address for the records, please?
Susan K. Raymond. Address is 9893 Arnold Street. I am right across Arnold Street from the property we're discussing.
Okay.
To the
Please
west.
continue.
I want to thank Mary, first of all, for sending me late. I asked late for a link to the meeting because I couldn't get all those letters and numbers in there. So thank you, Mary. And I mentioned that this property looks like wetlands to me because it has moss on the ground and all of the plants are, what you see along stream beds and so forth. So I'm just wondering if, since, you had said that it had not been designated yet, will it be studied prior to approval of the property being built on?
Mary?
Yes, so prior to moving forward at all with the permit process, if the variance is approved, we will ask the engineer to perform what's called a wetland survey to ensure that this is not a undesignated wetland. And if it is, then we'll explore whether or not it's included in the entire property. And if it's not, then they could meet setbacks from that wetland. But based on land development regulations that are adopted by planning and zoning, you are not able to install a soil treatment area or a septic component in a wetland area. So we would have to, but the engineer would have to prove that this is a seasonal or year-round groundwater rather than a wetland.
Okay. And then on the map that you showed of the different properties with less than an acre on it,
Yes.
yes, and the one that's in red is the property we're speaking about. My property is across the street here and it says it's 0.57 acres. It is not, it's 2 acres.
Okay.
I don't know where 5.7's coming from.
I collected this data based on GIS, so I will verify with our assessor's office that that's accurate.
Okay. And then did you also measure from my well? I guess I'm pretty sure it would be over 100 feet, but just in case.
Yes. We did measure from this STA to actually the road, and it was, I think, 172 from the STA just to the roadway. And so we didn't go any further than that because they're using a higher level treatment unit. They're only required to have 100 feet setback from neighboring wells and the on-site well.
Okay. And then where will the well be on this property?
Their proposed well location is right here in the southwest corner, kind of more midsection.
Okay,
You see right there where my cursor is?
I do.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for your questions, Susan. Lindsay muted me. Okay. Thank you for your questions. And now we will move on to further questions from the board to Mary about this property, or if you have comments, just raise your hand, board members.
I'm just wondering if the applicant or engineer were planning to share anything.
Do you know, Mary, if the
I
engineer?
know they
was coming?
planned to attend.
I did not see him in here.
It was Abel Castle and then Tim Petz.
Correct.
Lindsay, do you by chance see them on the list?
Okay, I think Abel can go ahead and he's unmuted, so.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hi, this is-
Abel, and what we will do so that you can continue with your testimony is we need to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in this case of the variance before us?
I do.
And will you please just give us your full name and your address for the records, please?
My full name is Abel Casillas. My address is 16825 East Villanova Circle. That's in Aurora, Colorado 80013.
Okay, thank you. Please continue.
Okay, I have a team on my phone because he's driving. He's my engineer. And I asked him the same question. If the well at the north side is 100 feet from the system he engineered, and he can tell us that, he's on the phone right now, right here with me. But, I believe we are.
From the north, we are 100 feet, yes. That's the north well. I can't look at anything though, Abel, right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the north is the downhill property.
North is, there's no one, the street is to the south, correct?
Yes, correct. The Snyder is at the south.
There's one house to the north, and it's way over to the northwest.
Abel, can I interrupt
And
you
that
for
well
just
is
one second?
visible
Hold
out
on,
on
Tim.
the street.
Hold on, Tim.
Abel, can I
Yes,
interrupt for just one second? Could you please reintroduce the person that you're speaking with? And can we swear him in, please?
can you introduce yourself, Tim?
Excuse me?
Can you introduce yourself and swear
Can I
yourself in?
introduce myself? Yes, my name is Tim Petz. I am a wastewater engineer, and I am
Thank
the
you.
engineer on this project.
Okay, thank you. We just have to have it. Do you
Thank
swear to
you.
tell the- Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in this case of the variance?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, please continue.
The well that is to the north of the property is to the northwest and very much to the northwest. And the well on the northwest property is very visible in the northwest corner of that property out in the driveway. It is considerably more than 100 feet away from the proposed soil treatment area of subject property on Snyder. That's the north well.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for either?
I have a question. I don't know if it's for Mary or Tim potentially. Just wondering about the seasonal high groundwater and in the neighborhood versus just on this property. Is it limited to this area, or is it sort of pervasive through the community?
I think Tim probably would know better than I, but based on the record review that I've done, with previous records, it wasn't noted that there was high groundwater. So that is going to have to be further investigation on our part and Tim.
Tim, are you still there?
Tim?
It looks like he,
We lose Tim. All right, Mary? You was proposing something to elevate the area to solve that problem, right?
So yes, if it is groundwater and seasonal groundwater,
Mhm.
you can, and you can install a mound, but we have to determine, what's the level that it's going to rise to, because you must, per regulations, meet a 2 feet separation, vertical separation from a limiting layer, which the limiting layer in this case would be the groundwater. But if it is determined that it is a wetland, then that would change. I mean, that would make it, you wouldn't be able to install the soil treatment area in a wetland. It's just not allowed. So we would have to relocate the soil treatment area if we can. And if that's the case, that changes the design, which
Hi, Abel. I'm here if you need me.
reapply for a different variance.
Okay, yeah, I think Tim is back again.
If they had questions on seasonal groundwater, I can comment.
yes.
Yes, they have a question.
Who are we speaking with, please?
This is Tim Petz.
I'm sorry, will you say it again?
This is Tim Petz, the engineer.
Okay. So I will need to swear you in.
You already did, Sherry. He just.
Oh, is he,
I think-
he changed voices. I'm
think
having
he's-
a hard time hearing him.
My apologies for doing it this way, but I can comment on seasonal groundwater. Seasonal groundwater is there. It is a mounded system with TL3 and treatment. This was the wettest year I've ever experienced in Colorado in several decades. The mound, pressurized mound, will accommodate seasonal groundwater. And we've witnessed it at this year, which is very high, is my take on the groundwater situation there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we've done everything we've needed to accommodate seasonal groundwater. That would be my
Okay.
statement.
Thank you. we appreciate all of you signing in for public comment. And like I have said previously, I know that once you all sign off and we're finished with public comment, now there will be 100 questions that you have to ask. So please be sure to email them in. We can make sure that the department gets them, email the department or make a phone call so that we can hear all of your questions and comments. So with that, we will move forward in the process. Are there any further questions for Mary from the board members on this particular variance? Okay. Lane, we're going to count on you since you are our local expert and have dealt with so many variances, and see what you have to say and where you think this should go.
Yeah, I think this is always a challenge, you know, the issues, to me, the biggest thing I would share for all those listening and neighbors to share with those that aren't present is how important it is that they pay attention to and maintain their on-site wastewater, their septic systems, take the opportunity to monitor their wells and know what's going on. Just looking at what's existing here, I see a lot of small homes built without the same technology that's being proposed and not addressing potentially groundwater issues on their properties, and that have been there for a really long time, some for over 50 years. And it's unlikely that those original systems are still functioning very well, especially if they haven't been maintained well. So the challenge is, you know, people being concerned about groundwater, which this board absolutely is. But if you're not monitoring your own well and you're concerned about it based on a home that has not even been built, you need to be concerned about all the ones that are already built and whether they're being maintained, in addition to any new construction that goes on in the property. You know, for me, based on what our regulations have, the table in question that some of the commenters have referenced is a table that is going away. We've discussed this with staff several years ago, and it's in the works for the staff to revise regulations, because that is really a zoning table, table 4.1, and that is not really a public health table. And we do need something that's really addressing, you know, risk and density components of septic systems. But, you know, this property was platted before the septic regulations were even in place, and it was given a buildable lot. It's meeting all the setback requirements. It's meeting highest level treatment available. So I struggle with reasons to deny it based on the neighbors being concerned about water quality, when this should be better than any system in the neighborhood currently. And yes, I understand the table in question, but that table is not a science-based table, and it is on its way out. And it's really a zoning table, which again, zoning doesn't even have those restrictions on size to build a lot. So, you know, we need to separate zoning and public health, but have our science-based regulations, and that table is not science-based. So, but I do struggle with the idea of seeing some of the other unbuilt lots that are incredibly small, you know, whether they could truly meet all these requirements or not. So I am concerned about some precedent for how small of a lot are people going to try and build on, because there is still a need to have these separations, you know, to wells and things like that. But those 100 feet separations are incredibly protective. We're really worried about treating that wastewater before it gets into groundwater. And in this case, it sounds like seasonally that's very close to the surface. So this system is going to be designed to do that, whereas the existing systems seasonally may not be. So those systems might even be underwater seasonally. So that's very concerning to me, thinking about all the other systems out in this area. So I guess with that, I would move to approve this variance.
We have a motion, and then obviously we'll have discussion. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that and agree with the rationale that Lane has expressed.
And then further discussion, Harriet?
I would just agree with Lane's rationale.
Okay.
I think that that it is concerning, the whole issue of, the water quality, et cetera. But I think that this particular proposal is not the biggest concern at all in terms of this area. So that's all.
You know what, I have to make a comment. Lane, I am happy to listen to you because you have had so much background in this. But the one thing that you have said that I've come up with several times as we've gone through variances is some of these were, like you just said, 1955 and 1960s and 1970s, and how far we have come and how in the world can we compare that? But the thing that has concerned me that you just also said was, so what do those systems look like? I can't imagine that they're anywhere close to the TL3, but I am happy the department is looking at a more scientific, and I know, Lane, that you have had a lot of experience in that. So I appreciate your comments and thank you. Any further comments?
Yeah, Cherry,
Hilda?
if I just add one comment, because that was one of my concerns, and I learned more about this buildability designation, and I just want to also put it into considerations for our decision that specific designation is for property tax or for property tax purposes and not necessary for permitting decision. And I just want to throw it in there just to kind of sustain our decision or our motion to approve this variance. That for me, give me the reasoning that I needed.
Okay. Thank you, Hilda.
And Sherry, no further comment. However, everybody has captured my thoughts as well.
Okay, and that was Rochelle Woods, also one of our board members. Okay. We have a motion on the table and we do have a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you, Mary, for all of your work. And congratulations to the lot owners. Okay, we will move to the next variance. And that's the 25,657. No, that's the 99459 Barnes Avenue. Is that correct, Mary? Okay. And we do have one person that has, well, he did wanted to speak. What I will tell everyone is that we will go through all of the staff presentation first. We do like hearing from the community members, their thoughts and questions. We like to keep the testimony within 3 minutes if we possibly can. We are always there to take questions. The department is, and if you want to send emails, etc., if you need more information. But this is a very beginning part of the process, and so we've got a long way to go. Mary, will you please
For our
presentation?
Yes. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
You've
Okay.
got the same presentation up, Mary.
Yeah, I see the Snyder Avenue still.
Let's see here. Let me just restart my share. It throws me off because what I see is not the same. So,
Now we have.
You've got
all
it
right,
now.
good deal. All right, so our second variance for the evening is 9459 Barnes Avenue. So the general concept of the PowerPoint is the same. You know, the parameters of a variance request is from an exception of table 4.1 or from the separation distance from an on-site well to an on-site soil treatment area, which is going to be less than 200 feet if higher level treatment is not implemented. These variances shall not be injurious to public health and shall prevent a substantial hardship to the applicant. So our applicant today for Barnes Avenue is Brian Verbeck. He has a 0.37 acre lot that is in actual unit 4 of Aspen Park. So it's on the other side of 285. It was platted in 1956, so only a year of difference prior to the previous variance. It was acquired by Brian in 2021. Engineering is 285 Engineering. And it is a proposed 2-bedroom dwelling with a higher level treatment unit for their septic system of treatment level 3N. It is also zoned as a residential 1. It is seeking a variance for the table 4.1 requirement where 1 acre is required and they only have 37% of the required lot size. Similar chronology, just a little bit different. So, the zoning came in November 13th, 1955. Zoning is still the same. The requirement of 0.287 acres is still the same, but the plat date is just differs a little bit. So October 5th, 1956, Unit 4 of Aspen Park was platted. And then our regulations that included Table 4.1 were implemented on June 3rd, 1966. So if you guys are familiar with the Conifer area, it's right next to West Jefferson Middle School. So my reference point is always the King Supers, but it's kind of in this area a little bit more south east, but still part of Aspen Park, just on the other side of the highway. All right, so here's our proposed development with the engineering site plan. Jennifer from 285 Engineering has provided existing wells. Those have been verified to meet that setback. And I do want to note that Brian's well on the property of question has been drilled. The location is there. They are going to meet all setbacks when it comes to the 100-foot for higher level treatment. And as I spoke before, they will be implementing the highest level of treatment with today's technology. They will also be doing traditional beds, so excavating 4 to 5 feet down, putting in a sand filter because they do not have that limiting layer. All right. Surrounding development. So they do have the school, which is 40 acres next to them. I learned something very interesting that school has its own septic system. Essentially, its own wastewater treatment plant, which I was shocked by because the amount of waste generated by the school seems a lot, but they have been operating that way since 2008. Your star down here below Brian's property, the property in question, 9459 Barnes Avenue, is it belongs to a utility company, and that is the Public Service Company of Colorado. And then right next to that, you have a right of way for utilities. So those properties are not owned, don't have any, well or septic or anything like that. You do have quite a few lots that are under an acre, under half acre surrounding the property in question. And then you also have the other end of the spectrum, closer to that acre. There is some vacant land available right here next to the property in question. There is a couple TL3N systems that have been installed in recent years. So if this were to be proposed, it wouldn't be the only higher level treatment unit. And then just a few pictures to get a lay of the land. So it is a corner lot. It is surrounded by 2 roadways, and its only neighbor is the school. It's a relatively flat 5 to 10%, slope. This is the approximate location of the STA. And that is the end of my presentation.
Sorry, I was muted again. Thank you, Mary. Board members, do you have questions for Mary? I'm not seeing any hands go up. And I'm not sure that we have, do we have any of the other folks here, the property owner or here to speak?
I did see Brian Verbeck, and then Jennifer is online too. She has her hand raised currently. So Jennifer is the engineer.
Yeah, I just saw it. Okay, so we will go into the comment phase. And we do ask that each of the persons try to keep it to 3 minutes if at all possible. But we do want to hear what you have to say. Jennifer, please pronounce your last name for me.
Sure, it's Migliorato.
Migliorato. So I need to swear you in.
Excellent.
Jennifer, do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this variance case before us?
Yes, I do.
And will you give us your full name and address, please, for the records?
Sure, it's Jennifer Migliorato, and our office address is 28529 Mountain View Road, Conifer, Colorado.
Okay, and what is your relationship to this? It sounds like you said that you have an office. Are you part of this project?
Yes, I'm the design engineer on this project. I'm the
Okay.
owner and operator of 285 Engineering.
Okay, perfect. Well, share with us the information you want us to have.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so in this variance case, just like all the other ones we've put through, we've proposed treatment level 3N, as Mary mentioned, so that we could get the highest level of treatment possible based on what's approved technology at this point. And in this particular case, we limited it to a 2-bedroom home for a couple of reasons. One, just the sheer space available with the existing well separation distance. And then some comments from other variance hearings sort of played into that. And then the lot size itself. I know there's some modeling that exists out there, but we don't have access to it. So we wanted basically to put forth, something that's buildable, developable, but you're not going to have, 15 people on the property. So we limited our size to 2 bedrooms, the minimum the county allows. So maximum occupancy of 4 people full time. And so I've worked with Brian through this process quite a bit. We've visited the site several times, went around, physically measured all of those well locations, sort of verified everything, staked everything out, and put together this design that we think one will function well with the property, the layout, how it is. And then with that higher level treatment will give us the best protection that we can by approvable technology place on this property. And so the treated effluent is at that best level possible. And as Mary mentioned in this presentation, the other presentation too, I think it will have those same maintenance requirements that Jeffco has. So somebody will be constantly monitoring this. One of the reasons we chose this particular treatment level 3N system is because they have manufacturer's representative also right here in Conifer, and they have their staff who does the maintenance yearly here locally, and they do a fantastic job and they're very diligent. And so I have very high faith in not only the technology, but the people who are providing the materials and the service for it. And basically, I think that was it. I just kind of wanted to give a rundown of my thoughts and why we chose what we chose.
Hey, I appreciate that. The board appreciates that. I do know you mentioned that Brian Verbeck was signed in. Brian, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or did Jennifer pretty well cover it?
Thank you. Yes, Jennifer did a great job in the description, and I'm certainly not interested in stepping on anything that she had to say. So, but no, I think unless there was something specific somebody wanted to know about what I'm planning there, no, I'm pretty much good to go.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that you were there and you heard all that Jennifer had to offer.
Yep.
Okay.
If there's a tiny thing, there would only be one person living there, it'd just be myself. So.
All right, thank you. Board members, do you have questions for Jennifer, the engineer, or Mary? Comments? Yes, Harriet, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have one question which has to do with the property that is, I don't know if the site plan goes north-south, but the vacant land, the 0.45, thank you, this helps me explain what my question is. The 0.45 acres of vacant land, and then there was also a note on a different map about public service, vacant land. Is that vacant land for sale? Is that vacant land always going to stay vacant? You know, or is it part of the school district? Whatever. The status of that 0.45
So the one with the
acres.
the one with the asterisk is owned by a utility company, and so that one's not for sale.
Okay.
The vacant land, and Brian could probably speak to this, but you know, during the development of this case, I asked as this case manager to explore all options, which includes purchasing other lots. So Brian could probably expand on that particular journey.
Brian, did you want to add to that? And if you do, that would be great, but we'll also need to swear you in.
Well, sure, I can add a tiny bit to that.
Okay. Brian, do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this variance case before us?
I do.
And will you give us your full name and address for our records, please?
Sure. My name is Brian Joseph Verbeck, and my address is 1604 Sunset Drive, Louisville, Colorado.
Thank you.
Yeah, so two pieces of vacant, well, yeah, the one piece there that's about a half acre. It's actually connected to the product, to the land, you know, directly south of me. And when I first looked at purchasing this lot, that was currently under contract with another entity. However, I don't think that ever went through. So if anything, the resident to the south of me would most likely look to acquire that because it's mostly on their property. There was another small discussion that I was having with the school district to actually acquire a corner that's directly to the west of me that's not really delineated there, but I guess if you envision the way the parking lot and the road kind of curves around, so envision a 45-degree angle off of the northwest corner down to that 45-acre vacant land space. That was kind of the discussion. Yeah, right over there. That if I needed more space, then the school district would entertain a discussion on that. However, they move a little bit slower than the rest of the county. So there's most likely nothing going to happen with that if it's not required for anything. It doesn't push me over an acre or anything like that. So it's more of a matter of convenience. But that's all there is regarding any other vacant land available. And yeah, the utility piece, I mean, if you were to drive over there, you could see the gas lines that are kind of sticking up there. That's not acquirable.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board members? All right. Thank you, Brian and Jennifer. And that was, of course, the property on 9459 Barnes Avenue. Okay, Lane, I see you are unmuted.
I think it's similar, but maybe even less of a challenge than the previous one we did, given that there's 40 acres of land to the west that isn't going to be developed into homes, and then space to the south. But again, it comes back to looking at the design and can it meet the requirements of the regulations outside of that table that is not really a component for in my mind that we should be restricting based on. This is platted. It's a buildable lot from when it was originally planted. It's meeting all those separation requirements. It has the highest level of treatment available. And it's a fairly modest build. So to me, it's meeting all the requirements for us to approve. So I would motion to approve this variance.
Okay, we do have a motion. Do we have a second? And then we will go to further discussion.
I would second that, Sherry. This is Rochelle.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now further discussion from any of the members? The board members? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this motion passes. Thank you. You have both of your variances that you've brought today. And Mary, thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, board.
Yep. Okay, we will go to the next part of our agenda, which is, of course, the financial report. And Salma, we're so happy to see you and glad to have you back. We loved having Joe too. We always like having Joe, but it's nice to see you.
I'm here, thank you. Can you hear me okay and see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome.
Can everybody see okay? Okay.
Fantastic.
If you could make it a little bit bigger. It's very wide, but it's very small.
How about this?
That's a little bit better.
Better? Okay. So hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Salma Jakan, and I am the accounting supervisor of Jefferson County Public Health. Today, I will be presenting the June financial statements. And as of this reporting period, with 50% of the year complete, our total revenues are on target with the prorated budget. Our grant revenues are at 49% of the annual budget, while our charges for services are at 59%. When it comes to our expenditures, we are slightly below budget by 6%, primarily due to salaries and benefits. However, this figure of 7.6 million only reflects 12 pay periods to date instead of 13 pay periods. We should expect the last pay period of June to hit the next financial statements due to pay period and date of July 1st. Supplies, we are at 100% of our annual budget, and we are expecting to surpass this line item. Charges for services or contractual services are at 42% of our budget, and then direct assistance is at 86% of our annual budget. However, we've only budgeted $7,000 under this line item, and we're not expecting any significant charges later on this year. Capital projects and equipment, we still have 84% of our budget remaining, and we are currently in the process of identifying any infrastructure improvement. And intergovernmental charges are ahead of, or payment to states are ahead of the budget by 22%. And this is the case with every year. Around this time of the year, we do make payments to state for restaurant licensing revenue, for restaurant licensing licenses that are issued in advance. Interdepartmental charges, to date, the county allocated 51% of cost allocation expenditures. And also to date, we've utilized 2.6 million of our county transfer, or 31% of our county transfer. Yeah, and this is also comparable to prior years. That's all I have, unless if you have any questions.
Questions for Salma?
I do. Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Salma, for your report. It's always very interesting to listen to you. I try to understand better what it means, the other services, intergovernmental, and direct assistance.
Sure. So other services and charges, these are our contractual services or professional and technical services. So pretty much like contracts with third-party agencies to do work, and it could be consultant services or could be staffing agencies.
So there is not, okay, so continue. You might answer my question with an answer, sorry.
Sure, and direct assistance, this line typically involves like payments to also third party, like providing technical assistance. Usually we don't have a contract involved. So which is just providing a technical assistant for organizations such as Colorado Health Institute and things like that. And we typically tend to not have a lot of those. And then the intergovernmental, these are payments to state. We have a restaurant licensing programs and our Vitals program. So we typically collect fees from clients, and portion of that fee goes to state for issuing license or payment, or for issuing license or birth death certificates.
Okay, perfect. What is the legal services provided to the board? Which line will that fall into it?
That falls under two lines. If we are contracting with the third agency to provide legal services, that goes under other services and charges. And we also use county attorney's office, but that would fall under interdepartmental, and it's part of our cost allocation.
So that fee falls into interdepartmental expenses.
County attorney's office falls under cost allocation.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to see which line I needed to look. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Further questions for Salma? Well, thank you, Salma.
Thank you for your time today.
So we need to approve the finances. So may we get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve financial report.
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Hilda seconds that, and we will vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we will have a budget presentation by Joe.
Thank you, Sherry. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I jump into the budget presentation, I wanted to circle back to see if this is an appropriate time to address those questions that may be looming for the syphilis award that was approved on the consent agenda. I'm not sure if now's a good time or during director comments, or if that question is directed to anyone else on this call.
I think if you have information to give us, you can go ahead and give it to us, and then we'll have that out of the way.
I will do my best. I do not have the details in regards to the specifics around the program. I do know that this is a partnership award that is provided from CDPHE to work in conjunction with the jail and provide opportunities for prevention around various testing opportunities during the intake process at the jails. I believe it is specific for females. However, that is probably something that the program staff would have to confirm. I am looking at the task order, and I am pulling details from there. So is there anything specific that I could help address outside of some of the financial pieces and going through some of the statement of work?
Yeah, just more on it seems like it'll be an infrastructure increase. I mean, I'm assuming you need some additional folks or some money maybe even being shared with the sheriff's office or something like that to be able to accommodate the workload. It was what, just under half $500,000, so 407,000.
So Lane, the award, the task order is for $441,000. It is restricted to a 1-year term. So it is the award period does start on the 15th of this month, going through the end of June of next month. As I look at the budget that is associated with this award, it does look like it is for existing staff members or at least JCPH staff members. I do not see staff members at the jail that would be covered under this award. So it is a JCPH funding. There are a significant amount of additional expenditures. So outside of personnel or salaries and benefits of $163,000, there are supplies for these testing so rapid syphilis testing, HIV testing to the tune of just under $30,000. There's also the lab, the lab charges that are associated with those fees. And then outside that, there's just miscellaneous charges that would support the program. So it appears as though this would, like I said, create a partnership with the jail, allow for JCPH staff to collaborate with staff members over at the jail and execute the testing that would be involved during that intake process to based on the based on what is called out in this task order. So sorry, I'm just scrolling through this.
It looks like Christine.
I was
has it.
just gonna.
Yeah, thanks.
So
all.
let me just say this. Why don't we do this? Joe, do you have specific other information on this particular question? Or because if you don't, what we could do is have Christine and Kelly during their time make sure to update us on that if they have more information from CDPHE.
I think that would be probably more appropriate. I have gone
Okay.
through this during the review process, but that seems like ages ago. So
Okay.
I have to
All right.
dig through old emails, old questions. So I'd like to delegate to Christine and whomever else would have some
Okay.
further insight.
When we come to the senior leadership and the staff comments, why don't both of you can jump in on that so that we get a full explanation? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank
Joe,
you.
continue.
I believe, Salma, are you still sharing your screen? I don't think I have an opportunity to share my screen just yet.
I don't think I am, but let me check.
I still see the financial
Oh,
report.
Salma, you're still on.
never mind, I lied.
There you go.
Okay. Let me see, bear with me. Okay, hopefully you can see the presentation at this point.
Yes, we can.
How does that? Okay, perfect, great, thank you. And again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the draft budget that will hopefully be the proposed budget for JCPH for next fiscal year. As you can imagine, the budget conversations around budget seems like a constant item. This is something that that involves almost the entire department. There has been a lot of time and energy, dedication from various staff members, a lot of details that go into this budget process, which I will get to in just a moment. But I just wanted to mention how happy I am to finally get to this point, as this is indeed a highlight in this process, bringing the numbers to the Board of Health for discussion. So again, thank you for this opportunity. What I'd like to cover today is just
Hey, Joe, it's not in presenter mode. Just wanted to share that.
What mode is it in?
It's just open document, but it's not advancing slides.
Oh, so sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me start the presentation, stop sharing and reshare the correct window. Thank you, Lane. I could have gotten very far without noticing that.
There you go.
Am I now?
Perfect.
Are we now? Wait.
Yep.
I'm trying to move it forward. Here we go. There we go. Are we now on the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. And of course, thank you for your patience. During this discussion, I'm hoping to go through a little bit of the process, outline the timeline, the stages of this process, and also take time to really focus on that county support, general funds, ARPA funds, that support that we are getting from the county, from the BCC or from the general funds. That is a lot. There's a lot of emphasis on that level of funding, as that is that supplemental funding that we tend to rely on for a lot of the services, a lot of to offset a lot of the costs within this department. So I felt it very important that we highlight that, and I spend some time going through the county support. And then briefly going over the total revenue and expenditures for next year's budget. Also, in previous years, we've kept the conversation specifically around the following fiscal year, moving toward that approval process. With us looking, the county as a whole, with JCPH, with all of the changes that we're experiencing in this department and all of the planning that we are doing, I felt it important to take some time to look at future fiscal years and to set the stage for what we can anticipate in looking further down the road on the multiple year plan. So I did want to spend some time with those comments as well. So going through the budget process, I believe this question has come up a few times, and I felt it's important to really outline the time frame that we go through when developing this process. Of course, it seems like budget conversations are constant. There's never a point in which we are not talking about the financial situation of the department. So please keep that in mind. It is ongoing and absolutely constant part of a lot of the decisions within this department, a lot of the discussions that we have in this department. However, starting in the month of April, that is when the accounting team, the administrative team starts developing the templates for the budget. As you can imagine, it's not as simple as just putting together a department level budget. There's a lot of intricate details. There's a lot of program details that need to be embedded in this process. There's a lot of team members that need to be involved. So it is crucial that we start with all of the information that's readily available. As the Board of Health sees many, many contracts, whether they be for services, for grants, for various other expenditures that we see in this department, those all need to be integrated in this process and available on those various worksheets. Each and every one of, and I'm sure everyone's comfortable with that dashboard statement that we look at when we look at the financial statements on a monthly basis. We have something similar to that, but at a much deeper detail for each and every program within this department. And having anywhere between 70 to 80 different programs within this department, many, grant funding, a large portion of that are grant funded programs, but there's a lot of details that need to be uncovered as we go through this process. So starting in the month of April is really a good point in time to get that conversation going. And like I said, the accounting team really kind of sets the stage and puts a lot of those details on paper to have available during the discussions when we get further in the process. Roughly around the month of April, or the month of May, apologies. So the month of May is when that draft is targeted to be distributed to the various staff members, program managers, team leads, directors, supervisors, and engaging in that process of discussion. And then what I have here as the next bullet is the May and June is when those various meetings are established. So there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of validating of figures, of numbers, ensuring that whether we have a pending contract that we are mindful of, or if we're aware of budget cuts, budget increases for our various sponsoring agencies or various grants or programs that we manage, those all have to be part of the process. So not only are we putting a lot of the details on the pages, on the tabs that we have available for staff members, but we are carrying that conversation throughout the process. So there's just a significant amount of meetings, follow-up meetings that occur during this process with staff members, the accounting team, program leads, and so forth throughout the department. I also want to mention, I don't really have it on a slide here, but during this process is when we are engaging with the county budget office to get some direction on where we should anticipate the county support to be for that year, whether there be projected cuts, whether they projected increases, whether we need to include merit adjustments, salary adjustments in our budget. So a lot of these conversations occur in parallel or in tandem as we are moving through this process. And as hopefully this board is aware, roughly around the months of June and July, I put June, July, it's always a target to present to the Board of Health in June. It's rare that we meet that goal. We usually present in the month of July. It is really giving the accounting team, the administrative team, just more time to have more details to be part of this process. And as I move into the next slide, we'll see how that pushes us close to the deadline of what is expected from the department. I also wanted to pause and see if there's any questions before I continue. I would hate to go through all of these slides and and hold off on questions. So if there are questions, please feel free to interrupt me. Up until the first slide really highlights the process, the timeline internally within public health. Once we get to the roughly for this year, it's the July 20th date. That is when our budget needs to be submitted to the budget office. The budget office has for the last several years done the presentation of the department's operating budget. Unless there's any need for additional funding or any business cases or decision packages need to be brought before the BCC. So our budget is due this year by the 20th, or our submission is due by the 20th of this month, so just in a couple of days. As you can see, that's why we try to target the June Board of Health meeting, so that way we have a little bit more time flexibility, but most of the time we are moving really close against that deadline. So in the months of August and September is when the departments will present to the BCC, again, if there's a decision package. If it is just a standard operating budget that does not exceed expectations or guidance that was provided by the BCC, the various departments do not present to the BCC. The reason for this early submission, as you can imagine, we are anticipating a 12-month cycle 6 months prior. There's a lot that changes, especially in public health, with our various awards, contracts that come in place, and the subcontracts that are associated with various funding sources. There's an extensive amount of moving pieces. It would be ideal to submit our budget as we get closer to the end of the year. However, there's a lot that occurs after our submission. So again, we submit in July. The presentations occur in August and September. In the months of September, October is when the county commissioners look at the various department budgets, the county budget as a whole, to determine what needs to be considered as far as reductions, increases, merit adjustments, what other pieces need to be incorporated in the budget before it goes before a vote in the month of November. So there's a lot of pieces that happen. There's a lot of conversations that occur. There's a lot that occurs behind the scenes along this process. So really quick, just to recap, the budget process starts in April and somewhat concludes in November. Those missing months, there are conversations in anticipation of what we can expect for then yet the future fiscal years. So please keep that in mind, that this is an ongoing process. It pretty much takes up the entire year, or is at least part of discussions for the entire year. Now, any questions about the timeline? I hope that will provide some clarification, but if there's anything that needs to be further discussed, please let me know. I put this slide together just to do a side-by-side comparison. Usually well, I shouldn't say usually, we've been anticipating budget cuts for quite some time. There is a concern at the county level that general funds are being utilized in excess of what is being put back in reserves. So there's that general sense that that there's instability with general funds. I use that term very loosely because, of course, there are many individuals at the county level that are providing stability with that level of funding. But I will say I'm very happy to report that we are anticipating an increase in supplemental funding from the current fiscal year to next fiscal year. Keeping with the column on the left side of this slide, I wanted to highlight that the general funds that we're receiving, and I'm sure you just saw it in Salma's presentation on the financials, there is general funds, supplemental funds for this fiscal year of 8.6, just under $8.7 million. What is included in our current fiscal budget is a 3% merit adjustment. That was initiated at the beginning of the year in January of this fiscal year 2023. So as part of our budget submission, we included a 3% merit adjustment. There is something else. I highlighted this because it is new for this year, and also one of our staff members made a comment during staff comment about the benefits holiday. The county is utilizing some savings. I assume that is the case. I am not part of that personnel board discussion, but there was a vote on moving forward with what's called a benefits holiday. So there are 2 months in this fiscal year where the costs for benefits are not passed along to employees. So employees do see a savings on their paychecks that are associated with medical, dental, all of that benefit package that they are signed up for within Jefferson County. That was a comment that an employee made. I wanted to put a little bit more detail on that. But that is part of this year's fiscal year budget. Also, part of this year's budget is a level of ARPA funding. We don't typically call that out. It's not a different funding source. It is tracked a little bit differently than you would assume any other grant funding and award. This is actually what we are seeing is we're seeing credits to salaries. So instead of moving costs out of the department or moving revenue in the department, what we're seeing, instead of moving revenue into the department, such as we would see if we were provided a grant or an award contract. In this particular case, costs are removed from the department. So there are credits which will accumulate to almost certainly roughly about $776,000 that the county is using ARPA funds to cover. Again, the 776 is a budgeted item, but we are anticipating utilizing all of that amount. Now switching to the second column, the right portion of this slide. In comparison for next year, what we are anticipating is an increase of roughly about 5% of the general fund, the supplemental funding for public health, bringing us to roughly about $9.1 million. This is by all means somewhat surprising, very, very good for the department. Seeing that, that there wasn't a reduction for fiscal year 2024, this is a tremendous amount of support, and I'm very grateful to see this increase. What this includes is a 5% increase from the previous fiscal year. So if you took the 8.6 million and added 5%, that is how we got to the $9.1 million. There is indeed a placeholder for merit adjustments that is embedded in the figures for next year. That has not been voted on. It is not. It has not been finalized yet. So I don't have that percentage to share with the Board of Health at this time. But I do want you to know that there is indeed a placeholder for merit adjustments for next year. Again, with the anticipation that there was going to be reductions next year, these are all very good items to be presenting or reporting on. There is also a placeholder for benefits increase. This is something as of very recently, I'm not sure if the county is going to move forward with benefit increases or not. What that would involve is the cost of premiums, health insurance, medical, dental, vision, short-term, long-term disability, all those benefits. If we see an increase on our financial statements and our budget, that would be a result of those costs being absorbed by the county. If that is level or if it decreases, those would be costs that would then be shifted. Obviously, there's a lot more complexity to this formula, but not having an increase would mean those costs would be passed along to staff members. So I am happy to report that in discussions, it has not been voted on or not formalized yet, but it is being considered for benefit increases. Of course, that's hard for this department to absorb more costs, but it is beneficial to our staff members. Next year, we should anticipate roughly about another $750,000 of ARPA funding to offset some of our salary expenses. So these are tremendous items, and I'm really happy that I'm able to report on some of these. I apologize that I don't have the actual figures, and some of these numbers are still being discussed. But again, there are some placeholders that I think will be very beneficial for this department. Now looking at revenue, I've broken this up into 2023 revenue. I think it's important just to take a quick moment, and I'll try to move a little bit quicker. Take a quick moment to look at where we are currently. Grant funding is at about $12.7 million. If you look at the bullet points, if you try to add those up, those will not add up to this $12.7 million. But I wanted to highlight a couple items just to give a little bit of insight, a little bit more transparency on where some of our grant funding is right now. So $12.7 million, 3.2 of that is coming from the ELC grant. We have per capita funding. That I use that term loosely. That's the support that we see from the state health department for public health services. Per capita is based on the formula they use to determine how much Jefferson County gets from that funding. For fiscal year 2023, we are receiving approximately 1.4 million. We have budgeted just under $1.4 million. And then I thought it's important to add in for family service division, there is approximately $3.8 million in grant funding, and for clinical services, $2.2 million. Charges for services, $2.6 million. Again, this is just recapturing what we're seeing for this current fiscal year. Vital records is projected bringing $1 million. Restaurant licensing, $817,000. Septic permits, $300,000, and medical billing, $211,000. I hope that gives a point of reference as I move on to the next slide. In 2024, what we have in our draft budget is grant funding of $9.6 million. That is obviously a significant decrease from $12.7 million, but that is primarily due to the ELC funding, the significant contributions from ELC funding drastically being reduced from $3.2 million all the way down to $304,000. It is just that natural progression. I think a lot of this we were aware of. Of course, it is hard to report these fluctuations, but it is where we are with that level of funding. Per capita was reduced from, like I said, in fiscal year 2023, $1.4 million all the way down to $635,000. There is another funding from the state health department, the workforce capacity. Actually, let me take that back. I'm not sure if that is from the state health department, but there is the workforce capacity funding of $545,000. Those two items together do not equal the 1.4 per capita dollars. But I want to reflect on where that trend was for the per capita dollars. We were typically seeing of anywhere from $640,000 to $680,000 prior to this current fiscal year. There was an increase, a significant increase, all the way to the tune of $1.4 million because of additional funding that was available that was distributed to LPHAs during the fiscal year 2023. So we're realizing that we're back to where we were with that funding level. Also, family services for next year is pretty stable, roughly about 3.9. It's actually went up from 3.8, 3.9. Clinical services reduction down from 2.2 to 1.9. That is just same thing, additional funding that were based on the last couple of years. Additional funding that was available has reduced a little bit. Charges for services still in line with where we currently are for fiscal year 2023. I'm going to go ahead and move a little bit quicker as I know I'm taking up a little bit more time than expected. Sorry. Expenditures. Here I'm just doing a side-by-side. I want to get through this pretty quickly. But again, if there's questions, please let me know. Salary and benefits. So as I mentioned, we have ELC funding that was drastically reduced. We're seeing that in those positions that were associated with that funding source, as it should be reflected that when a level of funding with a grant goes away, there is some adjustments within our department. Those positions, I think we were aware of for a significant amount of time. I think a lot of this stuff, none of this is very surprising. So our salary budget reducing from just under $18 million to close to $16 million. In fiscal year 2023, again, there's the ARPA credits of $776. In fiscal year 2024, it's $750,000. In fiscal year 2024, we are also anticipating $484,000 of vacancy savings. Those are positions that we anticipate that are vacant, that we anticipate not refilling due to some of the discussions around some of the program support, some of the direction on where we're looking at with those expenses. And also trying to look at prioritizing some of those funding streams as well, and being more mindful of what we anticipate supporting and how this department will evolve in the next couple of years. Looking at other services and charges, again, this is from an expenditure level. This is where we see our contractors, our professional services, outside support, as well as costs outside of the personnel. In 2023, we've got a $3 million budget. 2022, sorry, 2024, we're looking at $2 million. So there's a reduction. Again, as our funding levels change, so do the costs associated with those funding sources. Cost allocation I have on a separate line. I'm not going to spend much time on this. I just wanted to show that although we have been experiencing significant increases of cost allocation, those are the costs incurred at the county level that are distributed to the various departments. For public health, we are looking at $2.5 million for fiscal year 23. It's going up a slight amount to 2.6. Although that amount is significant, it is comforting knowing that it's not jumping as significantly as it has in the last couple of years. Which brings me to our total expenditures. Our total expenditure, total budget for fiscal year 23 is $2.4 million. In 24, it's going to be reduced to 21 million. So from 24 million to $21 million. There's a lot to be said with that significant reduction. There is still additional funding sources outside the department. One is the ARPA dollars that is supporting some of our staff members that we are not seeing in these numbers. There is still a tremendous amount of support for the various programs that we have in this department. I know side by side, this gives a glimpse of what could look like major changes, but that is not what is being revealed with these numbers, should not be revealed with these numbers. There is still a tremendous amount of support in this department, and there are still continuous discussions around how to be more efficient with these numbers and how to stretch that support as much as possible. I have a couple just quick notable items as I talked about the various programs and what went into this process. There are a lot of reporting mechanisms, details that are involved in this budget process. And we have approximately 80 individual programs. And that's a mix between what we call cost centers and grants. So grant funded programs and county funded programs, charges for service programs. So there's a lot of detail, a lot of reporting. There's a lot of, like I said, discussions that are involved in this process. So although this is very high level with this presentation, the details are pretty extensive. And also just to mention that we have approximately 170 to 180 staff members within this department. That does not include temporary staff members. So these are our full-time permanent positions. This also includes part-time positions and those additional roles as well. So we are still maintaining that level of resources that we've had in the last several years. Of course, these last couple of years, we've seen significant increases in staff, but we are still maintaining that resource level that we've seen in years prior. Looking forward, I feel like I'm doing my due diligence. I'm making sure that I'm providing some of that transparency in some of the discussions, the planning ahead. As I mentioned in a couple of the slides, and I've made a couple comments about ARPA funding, that funding is not expected to be available in fiscal year 2025. So although it is very much appreciated to have that level of support, we are discussing how we are going to move forward without that level of support for fiscal year 2025. This is not intended to be a dire comment. This is not intended to create a dire situation. This is just reflecting on the level of planning that is occurring within the department and how we are starting to already look at future fiscal years, even though we've not had approval by the Board of Health to move forward with the fiscal year 2024 process. So please keep that in mind. We are mindful, as we always are, to be as responsible and effective with the funding that we have, to plan ahead and to look at other ways to generate revenue for the department. So although we have one funding source that may disappear in the future fiscal year, that provides opportunities and additional discussions for how to replace that level of funding and how to expand our support and our reach within this county. Also, of course, one thing that's always looming in all the years I've been here is the general fund. It is always, it is assumed to be I don't want to say unstable. It is assumed that it is not guaranteed the level of funding that we will receive from the county. Of course, that opens up a whole nother conversation about discussions we should be having or could be having with the BCC, the county manager's office, and various other cohorts over at the county level. But of course, I have to make that note that we are never certain what level of support we were going to receive from the general funding. So just to put out there, what's being asked of the Board of Health, that is obviously approval to move forward with our submission of the fiscal year 2024 budget, and again, to move along in that timeline. Just as a quick reminder, the BCC it is expected the BCC will be voting on the county-wide budget that will include, of course, public health's figures more than likely in the month of November. It is rare that it ever gets delayed to December, but we should anticipate that vote in November. I also have a note here that if there are significant deviations from from the numbers that I presented to the Board of Health during this conversation, that it is anticipated that I will be revisiting this conversation. So what does that mean? We floated different percentages over the years. I think in previous years, we've talked about 10%. As many of us know, with the grant submission, I think we're allowed a 20% flexibility. However, with a budget this size, 20% is just unimaginable to have a change and not revisit this with the Board of Health. Even at 10% on a $21 million budget, we're looking at a $2 million swing. So I would float the idea of a 5%. If we're looking at it anywhere from right around $1 million deviation from the figures that is being discussed today, that this item will indeed be revisited at a future Board of Health meeting. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them at this time.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have questions from the board members? Lane, you have a question.
Thanks, Joe. So on the reduction ELC, is that, were those term positions that I assume are now going away? That was a pretty significant drop, so.
There has been the understanding that that funding will be going away for quite some time. Some of those positions have been, some of those individuals have found other opportunities within the department. Some of those positions have become vacant. There is also another set of funding I didn't want to spend any time on that the county is reserving for continued efforts. That some of those individuals will be transitioning to that level of funding outside of the public health department. So are those term positions? Those positions are indeed term positions. They are positions that were, sorry, I'm looking for limited term. There were limited term positions that were converted over to permanent positions. But again, there was always that level of understanding that that level of funding did have a term limit. So there has been a lot of planning. Primarily on Christine's part. She's been doing a tremendous job working with her team and preparing for that end of this funding being available.
Appreciate that, because I'd love to have that level of layoffs, and I know it's not unique to Jeffco. This is everybody, was able to surge later than they needed, but still getting that support, and then now it's not going to be sustained. I guess the other pieces in thinking more in details is, how are we funding our priorities, thinking of our strategic priorities, that we had sort of large buckets of money, but just wanted to make sure that we're adequately funding those. And then also, what are our gaps? So I have to imagine a shrinking budget doesn't mean that we're still covering everything we have identified that we think we should be doing. So just thinking about that and how that's going to be also identified and shared with the commissioners during your budget presentations, not just here's the budget we're proposing, but here's what's missing. Even though we know that there's not necessarily limitless money the county has to give to the public health, I think it's important that they hear and know what's still not being funded that is an issue, a health issue in the community.
Wonderful. Thank you for those comments, those questions, Lane. You're correct. There's not going to be an unlimited amount of funding. There is always going to be need for more funding. But if I could take a step back and address a comment in regards to the exodus or the positions, the layoffs, this budget for next year does not incorporate a significant amount of layoffs, positions that we will be shedding in this department. Again, there's been a lot of discussions, a lot of planning. So a lot of these reductions were natural in looking at vacant positions, in looking at roles that we've seen turnover in. There's been reallocating of roles. There's been shifting of assignments. So I don't have much to share, but I assure you and anyone who's listening that there is no intention to lose a significant amount of staff members. What we are doing, like I said, is we're looking at some of those vacant positions and being strategic and taking an approach that does not impact our staff members significantly. So I don't want to give any impression to any staff member or as well as to the Board of Health that there is going to be any concerns with positions at this time. What we have that we're presenting to the Board of Health that we will be providing to the BCC is support of the staff members that we have. And looking strategically as to how we move forward in our efforts. Lane, I wanted to also go back to your comments about how we look at our strategic priorities. That is an evolving conversation. That is, I believe, where we are moving toward. It is difficult with the unfortunate fact that budget and funding is a main driver in some of those discussions, but that's just the sheer fact. But we are taking those steps in that direction to be more strategic, be more mindful of our priorities. But unraveling, I hope that's not a harsh way to look at that. Unraveling what we have and reassigning some of that supplemental funding, the non-grant funding takes time. It's not something that can occur in one fiscal cycle, but I am very happy that we are moving in that direction. I think we're taking a major step in that direction with next year's fiscal budget. I'm hoping that as we have the discussions for fiscal year 2025, that will be the priority. That will be the highlight of those conversations. But for now, it is setting the tone and moving in that direction. So Lane, thank you for that. Those are all great comments. I also want to say you're not the first to bring those up. So I'm happy that we are having those discussions. And again, Lynn, thank you so much.
Harriet.
So I have a question, and Joe, this may be for you. This may actually be for Christine and maybe other members of staff, in which case, if we want to just wait until they get to their presentations, that's okay with me. But, you know, you've talked about particularly the very large grant, whose letters I can't remember exactly, but that we're losing. And from a perspective of, you know, staff have been planning for it and we're not really, you know, laying staff off because of that and et cetera. My question is the flip side of that in terms of what services or what activities are being lost with that reduction in funding that we have been doing, have been providing, have been undertaking, and will not be doing so in the future.
Christine, if you're willing, I'm sure I can fumble through that, but I think you'd provide a lot more insight. So if you're available.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I can speak to this in my section to continue continuity of the conversation.
We cannot hear you, or I can't hear you.
I think she's going to revisit that comment.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
She seems to be
All
in the
right.
middle of.
Any other questions for Joe? Joe, we appreciate the work that you've put in on this, and yeah, budgets are always fun to talk about, aren't they?
Jerry, I appreciate those comments. I have to reiterate, this truly is a department-wide effort. I am very grateful for the opportunity to present to the Board of Health, but it is a tremendous lift by this department, and it goes from one corner to the other of this department and who's involved in this process. So it is not the SL, it is not just the SL team, it's not just the supervisors. This is a team effort for sure.
It truly is.
So
It truly is. All right. Let's see, where are we at? So that was the budget presentation, and we do need to take a vote to move forward. So I would ask for a motion to move forward with the budget. And then, of course, you know, with the understanding that any changes will, of course, we will be notified of that. So can we have a motion to move the budget process forward?
I would make a motion to move that forward. This is Rochelle.
Thank you, Rochelle. Is there a second? I believe Harriet seconded that.
That was me.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
You have
opposed?
a discussion to.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I think it is important for us to see those gaps and see those pieces. So again, this is a very high level budget, but I'd love to have a better understanding of what we're not doing, what we're not funding.
I agree.
In this budget, so that again, those are things that also we can articulate with our meetings with the commissioners, and certainly staff can too.
I agree. Because we know that there's gaps. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, saying none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you, Joe, and all of the team for the work that you've done on the budget.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, let's go to the senior leadership team updates, and we want to hear from Jeff Zayek first, the interim executive director. Thank you for staying there right with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, board members. One of my biggest updates was just I'm going to pick up on emphasizing a couple of things that Joe has talked about. We have spent a fair amount of time as a senior leadership team really thinking carefully about how are decisions made moving forward, thinking about how do we prioritize budget around the strategic priorities and the things that are most important in the department, just knowing what you saw on those slides between 2024 and then again, potentially in 2025. So I just wanted you to hear that I'm I'm so proud of this leadership team in the absence of having an executive director for that many months to keep the organization moving forward and to keep it together. And I think you will, moving forward, see more of those kind of details that Lane just talked about, because we've been spending a fair amount of time looking at criteria. How do we think about what kinds of things we need to address that are the highest priorities in the organization, recognizing that we don't have unlimited resources, and what might that look like that we could share with the board at a later date too. And we are spending a fair amount of time talking about how to make sure that we are developing that capacity and support so that when the next executive director comes in, that some of those processes are laid out and ready to go for that person. So I just wanted you to hear that, again, lots of work happening, and people have been carrying this load with limited amounts of staff time and limited amounts of direction. So very proud of this whole organization.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions for Jeff? Okay. Jody Irwin.
Sherry, he's actually out of the office.
I'm Jody, but not.
Oh, well, okay.
I am filling in for Jody today, and I'll also have Alex's update as well as my own. So I'm sure you may chuckle at the fact that I am filling 3 roles this afternoon. So thank you for the opportunity to fill in for Jody. I just have one spectacular update to share, and I get to announce our Employee of the Month. So Sarah Kudel from our clinic is our employee of the month for July of 2023. Sarah, I think you're on. Clinic has closed their doors. But Sarah, leading into her employee of the month, did a fabulous job spearheading a response that was needed in the building this afternoon. So thank you for that, Sarah. And I will read a little bit of her nomination from Jody and her fellow clinic supervisors. So Sarah leads by example and is a wonderful supervisor. She is optimistic, inspires others, and has an amazing work ethic. She's always available in the clinic as a resource and does patient visits when and where they are needed. Sarah always communicates with a clear vision. Her leadership is amazing. Everyone loves to work side by side with her, and she makes sure that she is always present and available for her nurses and her clients. She always communicates well with both her team and those internal and externally to JCPH. She's the first one to arrive in the clinic area and typically the last one to leave as well. So Sarah is leads by example and has a strong model the way leadership principle within her. She's an amazing clinician. She's truly kind-hearted and cares deeply about the community. And I will say personally, it has been very amazing to mentor and to help support Sarah in her role. She is filling both the role as the immunizations supervisor and helping lead the clinic staff as a whole in the absence of a true clinic director. So Sarah, thank you for everything that you do. You are always inspiring. You always come with the right way to ask the really, really hard questions, and I appreciate that. You are always learning, and we appreciate everything you do for JCPA. So if you are on, thank you very much and congratulations. So that's Jody's update.
Thank you. And we do want to congratulate Sarah and look forward to the lunch that we're going to have on July 25th for the employee of the month. Okay. Joe, did you have anything else to add? No.
Thank you.
Okay. Jim Rada, you're up.
Well, I'll make this really quick. I don't have an update for you today, so we'll go on back to Christine.
Okay. Back to Christine. Thank you, Jim.
Responding as myself now, I want to speak to the only update I had was conveniently tied to the question that Harriet asked about the EPC staff, the division staff who are funded by this epidemiology capacity grant that we have had for a couple years now. It is a pass-through grant, so it comes from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention through the state health department down to the local level. This grant has funded our case investigation and contact tracing work. It has funded our COVID testing response, our resource navigation work, and some of our resource mobilization work, all very directly tied to COVID. When we first received the grant, we had a timeline of December 2021 approximately, that these grant funds would be available to. So while we made the intentional action to hire staff as FTE staff, we wanted them to be a part of the JCPH family. We were very clear with these individuals that they had a timeline of December 2021. Thankfully, those deadlines were extended. We had additional funding that came in through the second phase of that grant. And we were able to continue doing the work of COVID while being very clear and transparent with the staff that it is a term limited funding source. We provided numerous opportunities to share job descriptions with the caveat, we're not trying to get rid of you, but we really want you to land on your feet, and we want you to land on your feet in public health. So we have shared job opportunities with these staff. that grant ends, the second phase of that grant ends at the end of this month. So on Monday, we will be celebrating what I will call phase 1 of our scale back in staff. Our temporary hires will be finished with their time with JCPH at the end of next week. So we are going to celebrate them on Monday. I believe one of the board members is able to attend that meeting. Thank you so much. So we will celebrate that staff. That's about 25% of the staffing that we will be losing on at the end of next week. There's a third installment of that funding, and we are phasing out again through the end of December. So we have additional staff that will kind of get us through the start of respiratory season. We're not sure what we're going to see with COVID. So we are able to use this funding to continue the work of COVID response, I will call it, but also really strongly move into COVID recovery, of merging COVID into routine infectious disease investigations. So we are starting that process on August 1st, and the end of December will be phase 2 of our staff down. And then we have a little bit of staff that will be maintained through the end of April of 2024. We are supplementing that staffing with the ARPA COVID restricted funding that the county has graciously allocated to JCPH to help maintain and sustain that staffing and really shift us into true recovery for COVID. And so we're very grateful for all of the opportunities. It's a scaled down approach. So Harriet, to your question, we are currently not losing capacity in our ability to have infectious disease response or our ability to continue to support resources and resource navigation through the next respiratory infection season. That's the only update on that division that I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Was there further questions that for Christine? Was that the only one that we talked about earlier and saved?
Yeah, and I do have someone who will speak to the syphilis grant during staff comments for you.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yep.
And Christine, apparently you are going to also give us a brief update for Alex because she is out ill.
I am, yes. So Alex gave me a couple of celebrations and opportunities to share with all of you. On August 7th, our WIC program will be hosting a World Breastfeeding Week celebration at the Baby Cafe, which is hosted in our libraries. It will be from 12 to 4 at the Belmar Library, and they will be giving away goodie bags with items for new and expected families. We have 3 rocking chairs to raffle off that were donated by Mommy Rocks, which if you know anything about Mommy Rocks, they were a nonprofit tied to one of our former staff members. So that's really great to see. And Mother's Milk Bank, who is one of our public health champions, will be in attendance, as will staff from the libraries with giveaways for families. So Lindsay will be sharing the flyer with all of you on the board related to that event, but they would like to encourage you to join that event and see what we have for our breastfeeding mothers in the community. And then the celebration, the WIC team had a very successful state audit that took place over 2 weeks in May. The monitoring visit evaluated all aspects of the local agency WIC program, including program management, nutrition education, participant services, civil rights compliance, accountability, retail participation, and food deliveries. So not a small audit. This is done through chart audits, reviewing the program procedures, and state WIC staff actually observing the multiple types of clinic operations that they have, including the participant certification process, issuing the food benefits, and nutrition counseling. They had no significant findings, and one of the major strengths identified was the staff's high level of customer service in working with clients. A significant undertaking, and it wouldn't have been so successful without the amazing and dedicated WIC staff. So thank you to that team for highlighting what JCPH likes to model, which is service to our community with a smile and compassion. So thank you to that team. So those are the updates from Alex that I had for you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
For doing all of that with Jody and you and Alex. Okay, we will go to staff comments, and I believe that's where we're going to also get an update. I know that Nikki wanted to speak to the board. Nikki, are you still on? There you are. And then we also, is Nikki the one that's going to speak to the syphilis issue?
No, Hisaya, who is our sexual health program manager, should be on the phone and she'll be speaking to that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have that many updates for you today.
Okay.
Thank you to the board for the opportunity for staff to speak. I know historically, few staff members have taken advantage of this agenda item, but I wanted to take this opportunity to do so myself for the very first time. I wanted to share with the board that I have accepted a new role at Arapahoe County Public Health, leading the health department's communications. This is my last week at JCPH, and after spending the last 6.5 years here, and after getting the really great opportunity to work closely with the board throughout that time, it's very important to me to take a moment and thank the board for their support of health communications at Jefferson County Public Health. The board has always been huge champions of the work the communications team has done, and it's been extremely important to us to have the members of the board in our corner. I am grateful for the support personally, and the feedback and encouragement I've received in the last 6.5 years, I can truly say has impacted me as a professional and as a person, and it has done the same for my colleagues on the health communications team. I also want to take a moment and put in a plug for my team and encourage the board to continue to support and champion the work of the health communications team, as I truly believe that clear, strategic, and empathetic public health communications efforts play a really, really important role in protecting and promoting health in the Jeffco community. I am a mostly lifelong Jefferson County resident, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity I have had to serve in the county which I was born, raised, married, and am now raising my child. And I wanted to thank the board for your service to Jefferson County and to families like mine, and for helping me grow as a public health professional. I also want to take one quick moment to encourage the board to continue to invest their time, belief, and support into all employees at the health department, regardless of the typical visibility of their work, and to continue to find new and innovative ways to help public health workers feel valued and enriched. I feel extremely lucky that I have at many times in my career had a direct line of communication with members of the board and have had the benefit of the board's support. But I know that many of my colleagues have not always felt that same level of connection or had the same opportunities. As I know all of you know, the last several years have been just like a little bit difficult for the public health field. And there's still significant healing, recovery, and revitalization that needs to happen within the public health workforce. All of this is just to say that I'm really grateful, and I hope that as JCPH moves forward into its next era, even more employees are able to benefit from the kind of connection to the leadership at our department that I have felt, including that really important feeling of knowing that you're valued by all levels and that your voice matters. So thank you for giving me that in this role. And I just want to end with one more huge thank you to the board for your kindness, your celebration of the work that I have been fortunate enough to get to be a part of, and your belief in the power of health communications. And I cannot wait to collaborate with y'all from the other side of I-25.
Well, Nikki, we are just really sorry to hear this, but I just have to tell you, I'm not sure that I remember this coming before the board for a vote that you would be able to leave. I don't think that we approved that, but we do wish you well. I guess we don't get to vote on that, but you have just been wonderful to work with, and you've just done an outstanding job. And of course, we wish you the very, very, very best. Although the vote was unanimous, it said no. Okay. Do we have another? I think we had one more staff person that wanted to. Oh, Nikki, you have your hand up again. Did you want to follow up with the no vote?
I just wanted to say thank you. Sorry, I was trying to unmute and couldn't unmute. So I just wanted to say thank you for how kind that was. I felt sad not actually saying thanks. But, thank you guys truly for all the support. And if it comes to a vote, I'm going to have some disappointed people over at Arapahoe. I'm going to have to bring it up to as well.
Well, we will miss you. We will
Thank
miss
you so
you.
much. I'll miss y'all as well.
You. Kelly has her hand up. Kelly Curl. She wants to do a quick update too.
But not necessarily an update, although I may tack on to
Hisaya's information just to share some origin story, but wanted to echo appreciation for Nikki. She's been amazing to work with all around for communications, but in particular, as we look at comm strategy for our policy work, she's been instrumental in a lot of that. And we've talked a lot about some planning going forward that will carry on at JCPH after she leaves. And I'm excited to continue working with that broader team, as we know that comms and broader messaging strategy are really vital to the success of our policy endeavors too. So I appreciate Nikki, and I appreciate the board not voting to let her leave either, but we'll be excited to continue to collaborate with her in her new role as well.
Thank you, Kelly. Mindy, did I just see Mindy, your hand? Where'd you go? Okay. There she is, Mindy. You're on mute. There you go.
Hello, my name is Mindy Brown, and I just have two really quick comments. I am one of the staff members that Christine was talking about, and I do just want to echo that she and the supervisors did communicate the process all the way through for the last 3 years of what that would look like. So I feel like they have done a beautiful job, and I am one of the lucky ones that was able to transition into a new role, and I'm also very thankful for that. But I really wanted to take the time to thank the board for the employee benefits break for the month of July. That can be really impactful for some of our staff. So I do want to just take the time to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Mindy. Okay. Christine?
Yeah, Hisaya, are you on the line?
I'm
Lindsay,
not
can you-
seeing her.
I am on, if you can hear me.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there
I
she
can
is.
hear you. Thank you.
I can't get my video to start, so I'll just go ahead and start with audio. But my name is Hisai. I'm the APRN supervisor in the clinic, and I am overseeing the jail grant, as we call it. I apologize. I was seeing patients in clinic till 5:30, so I came on just as Joe started speaking. So I'm not sure if anyone has any specific questions that I can answer about the budget, the project, our interaction with the jail so far, or if you want like a broad overview, or what would be most helpful.
Lane?
Yeah, thank you. Mine was more just on since it's a 1-year grant, the idea of ramping up and then sort of what happens after that if we aren't necessarily guaranteed ongoing funding from CDPHE, and it's a lot of, sounds like a lot of work to mobilize, and then what if it goes away? So that was kind of more my.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the idea is that it's definitely for 1 year, but the thinking is that it will be extended for a second year. So Pueblo County has been doing this project with their jail, and they are now, I believe, on their 3rd year. And so their numbers have shown such value that they have continued to receive funding. And because they have been so successful, this was rolled out to Jefferson County and El Paso County. So we are hoping that our numbers will also be pretty extreme in terms of what we're able to do with this patient population, and so that funding will continue for the next year. I think they also recognize and have voiced this multiple times that because it's a new grant, implementing it will be a lot of work, and so they do take that into consideration in terms of deciding whether or not to provide us that second year. Does that answer your question? And maybe Kelly Curl could speak to it as well.
Kelly?
I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yes, if you think back to some of our earlier legislative updates earlier in the year, CalPA did a lot of work to monitor some of the CDPHE budget requests to the legislature This funding is a result of one of those requests successfully making it through the process. So to his point of, this was a program that state was partnered on in Pueblo. I believe my understanding is that it was funded through a CDC grant that couldn't continue or wasn't going to continue in the same way. And CDPHE wanted to have some more sustainability for the program. And then based on the success of it in Pueblo, wanted to expand it out to other counties. So Jefferson County was identified as one based on our congenital syphilis rates and because of our partnership through our clinical services and just broadly as an agency to be able to implement this in Jeffco. The other county selected was El Paso County. So they'll also be kind of joining this new cohort for this program. And some of the joint budget committee discussions that took place as these requests were working their way through the legislative process, there was a lot of interest from the members at the time around expanding this program, determining eligibility, figuring out how more counties can be added. There was certainly some interest expressed from some other counties in some of the earlier CALPO discussions from a few months ago as well. So I think there's a lot of interest and intent to continue this program. Now, none of that is solidified in a commitment at this point because that'll have to go through all the various processes going forward. But I think that there is a lot of interest in planning around trying to solidify this program as a meaningful way to address the significant increase in congenital syphilis that we're seeing in Colorado, including in Jefferson County specifically. And this program will be targeting a population that experiences a disproportionately higher level of risk, both for exposure and for reduced access to screening and treatment. So it's a really good opportunity for us to reach a population that really needs it and to continue to build out a really strong partnership with law enforcement through the sheriff's office and more specifically through the jail here in the county.
Well, thank you. Lane, did you have further questions?
No, but I think it'd be great to hear how that progresses and then also, you know, what the likelihood of ongoing support is. So appreciate that.
Sherry, I'm familiar with the program in Pueblo County and the success they're having down there. And I'm delighted to hear that Jefferson County was actually chosen to take part in this pilot. And I hope that we can partner with Pueblo to learn some of their best practices. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity and a great enhancement for JCPH. So this is exciting.
Thank you. And that was Rochelle. Some of the people on their phones only can't see you. So I just want everybody to know that that was Rochelle Woods.
Thank you. I apologize. Yes,
No,
Rochelle
you're
Woods.
fine. You're fine. Okay. Any other questions on the grant? It is an exciting program. Okay. Any other staff comments before we move to the board comments? I don't see any hands, but all right, board comments. Would any of the board like to make a comment? Harriet.
I will make a comment. Although I am sad that one of the staff comments was Nikki announcing that she's going elsewhere, I was really pleased to hear the staff comments. So often there's nothing at that particular point in the agenda, and it's just really nice to hear from staff and your thoughts and the things that you're doing and the things that you think we need to know about. So thank you all for speaking up.
Thank you, Harriet. Lane.
Yeah, I want to wish Nikki well. It is very sad to see her go. It is good to have colleagues in other health departments though. And saying good luck doesn't mean we're necessarily saying goodbye forever. So that door always can be opened again. So, but again, wish her well. And congratulations to the WIC program. That's fantastic news to hear, and they do amazing work. And I just really want to thank all the staff that were able to take time and participate in the ongoing recruitment process and took time to give feedback to the board. And it's very appreciated. So, you know, your thoughts, we want our ultimate decisions to be a good fit and to be supportive of everyone. And make sure we're continuing to move in the right direction. And I hope we're continuing to be on that path.
And I would echo that. I have to tell you, it has really been fun over this past 14, 15 months to really see it. Just really feels like a team. I have really enjoyed getting to meet so many of the staff and getting to go to the Employee of the Month lunch. And I'm so happy to hear that we have other members that go. I know Harriet's been there. I think Lane's been there. Hilda's been there. I think Rochelle, I'm not sure if she's gotten to go yet, but it's really great. And it's fun to really meet some of the staff. And I have to tell you, it's just amazing how they are such a team and they all feel, part of that team. So we appreciate all of you. Any further comments from the board?
Carrie, I would just also like to thank the staff for their continued dedication and work. Without them, JCPH would certainly be in quite the pickle. Very dedicated staff, and we're so fortunate to have all of them here. I also wanted to let Christine know that I loved all of Alex's updates. Please make sure that any events, the WIC event, for example, any upcoming events, make sure that the board members are afforded the opportunity to know the dates and times of those things so we can try to attend as well. Great meeting today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Are there any other comments before we adjourn? It was a good meeting today. It was longer. I appreciate everyone's attention and time. I know that you all have had long days for all of you, including our board members. So thank you. But if seeing no other comments, questions, concerns, we will adjourn the meeting. It is 6:37. Thank you for all of your time.
Good night.